You have $3 million saved, you're 56, and you want to spend $120,000 a year in retirement. On paper, that works. The 4% rule says you're fine. You've done the math. You've earned this. But there's a number you haven't accounted for, and it can cost you over $200,000 in taxes you never saw coming. That number is $84,600. That's the income limit for a couple to keep their ACA health insurance subsidy in 2026. $1 over that line, and you lose the entire credit, not part of it, all of it. For a couple in their late 50s, that subsidy can be worth $15,000 a year, sometimes more. So here's the problem. If you're pulling $120,000 a year from a traditional IRA, your taxable income is $120,000. You're over the cliff, and you're paying full price for health insurance every single year until you turn 65 and Medicare kicks in. That's 9 years of unnecessary costs that nobody warned you about. And that's still not the biggest issue. Because while you're managing the ACA cliff year by year, your traditional IRA keeps growing. And when you hit 73, the IRS forces you to start taking required minimum distributions, whether you want to or not. If you haven't been doing Roth conversions in the meantime, those RMDs can push you into a higher tax bracket for the rest of your life. This is the exact situation Mark and Lisa found themselves in. They retired at 56 with $3 million and thought they had everything figured out. They didn't. And the fix isn't what most advisors tell you. If you're a near retiree with a big 401k and you don't want to lose your health insurance subsidy to a tax trap you didn't see coming, subscribe right now. I'll walk you through the exact numbers in the next 10 minutes. Let me explain how this works at a basic level, because this is the piece most people are missing. When you pull money from a traditional IRA or a 401k, that withdrawal is counted as ordinary income. The IRS treats it the same as a paycheck, and that income gets added to your modified adjusted gross income, your MAGI, which is the number the government uses to determine whether you qualify for an Affordable Care Act health insurance subsidy. In 2026, the cutoff for a two-person household is $84,600. That's 400% of the federal poverty level, and it is a cliff, not a slope. If your combined income lands at $84,599, you keep the full subsidy. If it lands at $84,601, you lose every dollar of it. There is no partial credit in the middle. Now here's where the numbers get uncomfortable. A mid-tier silver plan for a couple who are both in their late 50s runs roughly $1,500 a month without help. That's $18,000 a year. With the subsidy, you might be paying $3,000 to $4,000 a year. The difference is around $14,000 to $15,000 annually, just from staying under that line. That's not a rounding error. That's a car payment. It's a full year of grocery bills. So when Mark came to me, he was 56 and had just retired. He and Lisa had done what most people would call everything right. They had $2.8 million sitting in a traditional IRA. They had $200,000 in a Roth IRA. And they had $300,000 in a regular taxable brokerage account. Their home was paid off in Texas. No debt. They wanted to spend $120,000 a year. Their plan was straightforward. Pull $120,000 a year from the traditional IRA, supplement with dividends from the brokerage, and let the rest grow. Simple. Clean. And it would have cost them $135,000 over 9 years, just in lost subsidies. because pulling $120,000 from a traditional IRA means your MAGI is $120,000. You're $35,000 over the cliff. Subsidy gone. And on top of that, a $120,000 traditional IRA withdrawal means you're paying ordinary income tax on every dollar at a time when you have zero subsidy help to offset the cost of your health insurance. So you're paying more on both sides at once. Mark didn't know this because he was focused on his withdrawal rate, not his tax rate. That's the most common version of this trap I see. People spend decades building the right number and almost no time thinking about how they will pull the money out. The two decisions are not the same. Here's what makes this especially frustrating. The traditional IRA keeps growing while you're in retirement, even if you're spending from it. If your account earns 5% a year on $2.8 million, that's $140,000 in growth annually. You're spending $120,000 and still adding to the balance. By the time you hit 73, the IRS will force you to start withdrawing a percentage of whatever is in that account, and the required minimum distribution on a large balance can easily push you into a 22% or 24% bracket for the rest of your life. That's the second trap hiding behind the first one. The system is designed to protect your premium subsidy only if you stay under that line. The line does not move for you. Your planning has to move for the line. So the obvious question is, why would anyone just keep pulling from a traditional IRA and blow past that cliff? Usually it's because they're not thinking about it. Their advisor set up a monthly transfer years ago, and nobody revisited the tax structure when retirement started. But what if there was a way to spend $120,000 a year and still stay under that cliff? That's exactly what the framework I'll walk you through next is built to do. I used to think the only thing that mattered in retirement was your withdrawal rate. Run the 4% rule, balance your accounts, collect dividends. I was wrong. The single biggest lever you can control in the first decade of retirement isn't your rate of return. It's your MAGI, and I learned that the hard way watching clients lose $15,000 a year in healthcare credits because they didn't know the cliff existed. So here's the framework. I call it the ACA-Aware Drawdown Order, and it works in 3 phases depending on where you are in retirement. Phase 1 covers the years from when you retire until you turn 65. This is the most expensive period if you get it wrong, because you're responsible for your own health insurance. The goal in this phase is to keep your MAGI below the ACA cliff. For Mark and Lisa in 2026, that means keeping their combined income under $84,600. Simple goal. But the mechanics take some work. Here's the math. The 12% federal income tax bracket for a married couple tops out at $100,800 in taxable income in 2026. The standard deduction for a couple under 65 is $32,200. Add those together, and a couple can have up to $133,000 in gross income before they hit the 22% bracket. But the ACA cliff is at $84,600, and that's a MAGI number, before the standard deduction. So in practice, the binding constraint isn't the tax bracket, it's the subsidy cliff. If their brokerage account generates $5,000 in dividends, their safe withdrawal room from the traditional IRA is $84,600 minus $5,000, which is $79,600. Everything above that has to come from somewhere else. They need $120,000 to live on. The gap is $40,400. That's the amount that needs to come from their Roth IRA or from the cash bucket. No MAGI impact, no subsidy loss. That's phase one. Keep traditional IRA withdrawals just under the cliff. Use Roth and cash to fill the rest. Phase two runs parallel to phase one, but it's a longer game. Every year you're under that cliff, you also have room to do a Roth conversion. A Roth conversion means taking money out of the traditional IRA and moving it to the Roth, and paying ordinary income tax on it now, at today's low rate, so you never have to pay taxes on it again. The goal is to chip away at the traditional IRA balance before RMDs start at age 73. Here's why this matters more than most people realize. With $2.8 million in a traditional IRA at age 56 and a conservative 5% annual growth rate, that account doesn't shrink when you pull $79,600 a year. It actually grows. By the time Mark turns 73, that balance could be over $3 million, and the IRS will require him to withdraw a percentage of it every year whether he wants to or not. On a $3 million IRA at age 73, the required minimum distribution is roughly $116,000. That's taxable income he has no control over. It could push him into a higher bracket and increase his Medicare premiums through something called ACA-Aware. So the Roth conversions in Phase 2 serve as insurance against that future problem. Each year they stay under the ACA cliff, they convert some of the IRA at a low rate. After 5 years, those converted funds are available in the Roth completely tax-free. Phase 3 starts at 65. Once Mark and Lisa are on Medicare, the ACA cliff disappears. The new constraint becomes the ACA-Aware threshold, which in 2026 is approximately $206,000 for a married couple. That gives them far more room to do aggressive Roth conversions and reduce the traditional IRA balance before RMDs start. Now let me put this in concrete terms so you can see what the difference actually looks like. Fragility path, no planning. Mark and Lisa pull $120,000 a year from the traditional IRA. MAGI is $120,000. They're $35,000 over the cliff. Subsidy gone. They pay full price for health insurance at roughly $18,000 a year instead of $3,000. That's $15,000 of extra spending they didn't plan for. Every year for 9 years. Total unnecessary cost, $135,000. And because they never did Roth conversions, their IRA grows, and the RMD problem waits for them at 73. Resilience path, ACA-Aware Order. They pull $79,600 from the traditional IRA. They take the remaining $40,400 from the Roth and cash bucket. Total, MAGI, $84,600. They keep the full subsidy, saving $15,000 a year. Over 9 years before Medicare, that's $135,000 in subsidies they don't lose. Meanwhile, they're doing modest Roth conversions within the bracket and slowly reducing the size of the IRA. The RMD problem at 73 becomes manageable instead of catastrophic. The difference between those two paths isn't income. They're spending the same $120,000 either way. The difference is which account the money comes from. That's it. Account order, not the withdrawal amount, is the entire game. But there's a catch I want to flag right now. If you follow this plan too rigidly, you might overprotect the ACA subsidy and underinvest in Roth conversions. The bigger long-term threat isn't 9 years of health insurance costs. It's a decade of missed conversion opportunities that leave a large traditional IRA exposed to rising RMDs. The real money is in the years between 56 and 65 when your tax rate is low and your traditional IRA is still manageable. And there's one specific scenario that can wipe out everything I just described in a single year. Here's where the plan gets stress-tested by real life. Mark and Lisa are in year 2 of retirement. They've been careful. Their MAGI has stayed just under $84,600. They're getting the subsidy. Everything is working. And then the roof starts leaking. The estimate comes in at $15,000. Not catastrophic, but not small either. And because they're trying to avoid touching their cash bucket, Mark's first instinct is to pull $15,000 from the traditional IRA. He's done it before. It feels routine, except it's not routine anymore. Before retirement, a $15,000 IRA withdrawal was just a tax event. In retirement, it's a MAGI event, and that $15,000 pushes their income from $80,000 to $95,000, which is $10,400 over the ACA cliff. Subsidy, gone for the entire year. Now let's add up the actual cost of that roof repair. The $15,000 withdrawal itself is taxable income at 12%, which is $1,800 in federal taxes. But the lost subsidy, the $15,000 in health insurance credits they no longer receive, that's a separate hit. Total incremental cost of pulling $15,000 from the wrong account. $1,800 in taxes, plus $15,000 in lost subsidies. That's $16,800 to fix a $15,000 roof. Effective tax rate on that $15,000 withdrawal, over 100%. This is not a theoretical edge case. This is what happens to people who don't have a dedicated cash bucket for unexpected expenses. The prepared version of this story looks completely different. Mark has kept 3 years of living expenses in a high-yield savings account. The $15,000 comes from there. MAGI doesn't move. Subsidy stays intact. The roof gets fixed and nobody loses anything extra. Pulling $15,000 from a Roth IRA gets the same result. Qualified Roth distributions don't count toward MAGI. No tax. No subsidy loss. No problem. The account you pull from matters more than the amount you pull. That's the core idea here, and it shows up in small expenses just as much as in big ones. I've seen people blow the ACA cliff on a car down payment. I've seen it happen on a vacation they booked without checking their year-to-date income. One couple lost their subsidy because they forgot to account for a part-time consulting payment from January. In every case, the dollar amount wasn't huge. The compounding cost was. So the fix sounds simple. Just use Roth or cash for unexpected expenses. Keep the traditional IRA pulls predictable and under control. But there's a deeper problem underneath this. A lot of people don't have a large enough Roth balance or cash reserve to do this, because they spent their early retirement years protecting the ACA cliff while doing almost no Roth conversions. They were solving the short-term problem and creating the long-term one. And when the decision gets complicated enough, most people don't do anything at all. That's the real trap, and it's not about taxes. Here's the part nobody talks about. You've spent 30 years earning, saving, and managing money. You've tracked accounts, rebalanced portfolios, maxed contributions, watched statements, and when you finally retire, you want to stop. The last thing you want is another job as an amateur tax accountant. When most people sit down with a retirement income spreadsheet that has 10 different account types and 3 different tax codes running through it, they freeze. The complexity isn't the problem. The mental exhaustion is. After decades of making financial decisions, the brain starts treating tax optimization the same way it treats everything else that's hard, as something to deal with later. I get it. That's not a character flaw. That's decision fatigue. and it's completely normal after 30 years of managing a career and a family and a portfolio all at once. Mark had a spreadsheet with 9 tabs. One tab for each account, one for Social Security projections, one for RMD estimates out to age 90. He spent 3 weekends adjusting it and still wasn't sure what to do. He knew the numbers were important. He just couldn't figure out what action to take. We scrapped the spreadsheet, not the data, just the 9-tab structure that required him to think about all of it at once. Instead, we built one simple rule. Keep 3 years of expected living expenses in a savings account. Once a year in December, check whether converting some traditional IRA money to the Roth would keep their MAGI under $84,600. If it would, do the conversion. If not, skip it. One decision per year, done in under 30 minutes. For the rest of the year, all spending comes from the savings account. Automatic, no daily decisions, no spreadsheet tabs, no anxiety about whether a restaurant dinner or a flight is going to trigger an ACA cliff violation. That's the cognitive reframe. You don't need to optimize every dollar in real time. You need a system that handles the routine automatically and flags one decision per year. The people who execute the best retirement income plans aren't doing more analysis. They're doing less. They've simplified the ongoing decisions down to a single annual review. The framework is the plan. Stick to the account order, maintain the cash bucket, convert once a year within the safe zone. That's all. And once you've built that structure, the actionable steps that make it work aren't complicated. Let me make this concrete. Here are 5 steps that put this framework into practice, starting with the first thing you do before you touch a single account. Step 1. Know your cliff. Look up the current 400% federal poverty level for your household size. In 2026, for a 2-person household, it's $84,600. Then calculate your baseline MAGI, meaning the income you'll have even before any IRA withdrawals. That includes dividends from a brokerage account, interest on savings, any part-time income, and Social Security if you're already claiming it. Subtract that from $84,600. The number you get is your safe withdrawal room from your traditional IRA. That's the ceiling. Don't go over it. Step 2. Build a 3-year cash bucket. In the year you retire, or ideally the year before, fund a cash account with 3 years of expected living expenses. For Mark and Lisa, that's 3 times $120,000, which is $360,000. They fund it by taking a lump sum from their traditional IRA, staying within the 12% bracket, and below the ACA cliff where possible, and parking the money in a high-yield savings account or short-term treasuries. This bucket is the buffer that lets you handle every unexpected expense, roof, car, medical bill, without touching your MA plan. One important note here. If you retire in or after the year you turn 55, and you're pulling from a 401k at your most recent employer, you can do this without the 10% early withdrawal penalty. It's called the Rule of 55. It doesn't apply to IRAs, but if your 401k is still at your last employer, it's worth knowing about before you roll anything over. Step 3. Run the Roth conversion ladder. Every year from retirement to age 65, calculate how much room you have between your baseline MAGI and the $84,600 cliff. Whatever space remains after your IRA withdrawals, use it for a Roth conversion. Even $10,000 to $20,000 per year adds up significantly over 9 years, and those converted funds will be available completely tax-free after 5 years. Prioritize staying under the cliff over maximizing the conversion amount. If you have to choose between a larger conversion and keeping the subsidy, keep the subsidy. $15,000 in annual subsidies is worth more than the tax savings on a marginal conversion. Step 4. Shift strategy at 65. Once you're on Medicare, the ACA cliff disappears. Your new constraint is MAGI, the income threshold that triggers higher Medicare premiums. In 2026, the first MAGI charge for a married couple kicks in above roughly $206,000 in MAGI. That's a much wider runway. Use it. Convert as much as you reasonably can from the traditional IRA each year between 65 and 73. You're reducing the account balance that will eventually drive your RMDs, and you're doing it while you still control the timing and amount. Step 5. Use tax-free accounts for every unplanned expense. Once your cash bucket and your Roth balance are established, any expense that wasn't in the plan, a major repair, a trip, a gift to your kids, comes from Roth or cash, not the traditional IRA. Never the traditional IRA for surprise spending. That one rule protects the rest of the plan. One caveat before I wrap this section. This framework assumes you have enough cash, or a Roth balance large enough, to absorb both the daily shortfall and the unexpected expenses. If you don't have much in Roth yet, you may need to withhold the tax from the conversion itself instead of paying it from savings, which reduces the amount that gets converted. That's not ideal. But doing a smaller, imperfect conversion is still better than doing nothing. If this checklist helps you protect even 1 year of ACA subsidies, that's $15,000 more in your pocket from a decision that cost you nothing to make. Subscribe so you don't miss the follow-up video, where I walk through exactly how to set up that cash bucket in your first year of retirement. Let's bring this back to the big picture. Having $3 million at 56 is genuinely impressive. Most people never get there. But the finish line isn't the account balance. The finish line is how much of that money you actually get to keep, after taxes, after healthcare costs, after required minimum distributions that the IRS controls, not you. The lesson from Mark and Lisa's situation is simple. Your retirement number isn't what determines your retirement income. The sequence you follow to withdraw it does. If you pull from the wrong accounts in the wrong order, you can lose $15,000 a year in health insurance subsidies for 9 straight years. You can walk into RMDs at 73 with an IRA so large that the forced withdrawals push you into a higher bracket for the rest of your life. And none of that is because you did anything wrong. It's because nobody told you the rules of the withdrawal game before you started playing. The ACA-Aware Drawdown Order isn't complicated. Keep your traditional IRA withdrawals under $84,600. Use Roth and cash for everything else. Convert a little each year when you have room. After 65, convert more aggressively. Protect your flexibility for unexpected expenses. That's the whole plan. Mark and Lisa stuck with it. They're now on track to save over $180,000 in total lifetime taxes and subsidies just by changing which accounts they pull from. And in what order. Same balance, same spending. Completely different outcome. If you found this useful, hit subscribe. Every week I cover the hidden tax traps and retirement income decisions that most people don't find until they've already made the mistake. See you in the next video.